Spenkelink is improving as well, nearly 2/10, and that will see him jump up to potentially the front row as Klaas Vester sets a new best time, a 1:40.296. Personal best moves him up to the second row alongside Matas Marquez, but Vidago's still improving, or at least matching his time. He's now in the final corner. You can see on the right hand side of your screen the track map, the number 4 hurtling towards the start finish line. And does Kieran Vidago improve? It looks like he's only going to be able to match his previous best. In fact, he lost over 1/10 of a second in the final sector as Seb Spenkelink gets held up in traffic there into the penultimate corner. Looked like it was Chris Pinchbeck for Aston Martin potentially there, just hanging around on the racing line, and Seb Spenkelink lost a heap of time. He's going to match his best as he crosses the line, if not lose out to it. Yes, he doesn't improve. Look at that, 200ths of a second. Very close indeed for the Dark Sky Racing number 1 McLaren, but he knows there is pace in the tank with 2 minutes to go. Here is Yitzo Medema, who skipped up towards the top 10, position 8 at the moment, 1:40.542. Looking in fairly good stead in the Ferrari. The Ferrari looks to be a strong car to have at the moment, 1st, 3rd and 8th. And let's see how the rest of this qualifying pans out. Steve, they've been pushing hard, but certainly finding the limits, but it's all to play for in wet qualifying, isn't it? You can just find yourself lucky here and there. Those extra tenths can see you move up and down the field.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's like I said, everybody's trying to find that limit, trying to find the edge of the grip and not going over it, and it's a tiptoe affair going round, and some of the drivers are just finding that limit a little bit quicker. And look at that, for a masterful slide, almost held it, but just not quite talented enough, dare I say it, just to keep it till the end. But consistency is key around here as well. In these conditions, trying to put that fast lap together is no easy job, and it's very, very challenging tonight, but the drivers are doing a fantastic job. Vidago currently sat on that provisional pole, although he's not that far in front. He's not safe by any means. We're into the final minute. The top 2 are still on the track. There's probably half the field is still on the track at the moment, but yet to see who's going to improve.
So Vidago leads the way, 40 seconds remain on the clock, so if you're out on track you should find yourself enough space to start another lap and finish the one you're currently on. If you're in pit lane though, it looks like you've accepted your fate. So Klaas Vester and Clyde Bainey in 3rd and 4th, they've accepted that those will be the best positions they could possibly gain. Nard Cox in P9 as well as in pit lane, with Thomas Van Schaik, Joris Everleens, Cliff Bulker, Benjamin Simmers, Mike Abrenhoser, Chris Vickers and Nelson Abrenhoser all in pit lane. So a number of drivers believe they have got the best out of the track conditions. Kieran Vidago doesn't look like he's going to improve, or he does. Just as I say that, the delta seems to swing the other way as it so often does in the wet conditions. So a number of drivers are going to be collecting the checkered flag now, which is waving at start finish. Matas Marquez here, the number 20 Team Odyssey B McLaren, flies through the dunes and up over the crest. How is he getting on in P5, matching his best time, Steve?
He was 2/10 up. He just lost it all just as you focused onto the time. It just disappeared. I mean, 2/10, we talk about it as if it's a lot of time, but it's 2/10 of a second we're talking about. Let's not forget the margins are so small, and that's all it takes to improve. But he's totally lost it now, and he's 3/10 down on the lap. I don't think he's going to get that back. I think it's going to be I think it's pretty much as it is, as it stands at the moment.
Yep, Vidago doesn't improve. He heads to pit lane as well. Reece Spence robbing the pits, Klaas Vester. It looks like they're all accepted their positions, and I believe there are no movers and shakers. Only the number 443 Aston Martin is still out there on track, but it doesn't look like we're going to see an improvement from Chris Pinchbeck. I'll just keep my eye on the timing screen in case Chris surprises us all and heads across the start finish line. No, he drops back to pit lane, and the number 19 as well is still flying around track. Could be another driver about to come and head to pits. That was Tim Krul. No, he stays 19th, so no change there. Drivers now head towards the race. They will be gridding up very shortly. And Steve, with the weather as it is, with these changeable conditions as well, it looks like we will still continue to see rain here at Zandvoort, which isn't it's tough enough driving the Zandvoort circuit, isn't it? It's 4.3 kilometres, a very unique, every corner's different, very challenging circuit. Factor in the rain, factor in the formation of puddles and of certain more slippy areas, let's say. More, I'm looking at the second sector where you really need the mechanical grip to go in your favour. It makes this circuit a challenge enough. Factor in then that you've got 31 other drivers all trying to beat you. It's going to be a challenge making it through this 60 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say, forget the weather, forget the track. There's 32 cars on the grid as well in these conditions. I mean, as I said earlier, Zandvoort's one of my favourite tracks. I think it is a good track to drive at. It's quite a technical track. You've got to get the lines bang on because there's quite a few corners flow into one another, where if you're slightly out on the other one, the previous corner, there's not a lot of room to make up that line to get back on line without costing yourself a whole heap of time. Having said that, overtaking round here can be quite difficult. It's not a track where you can sort of throw it up the inside, apart from maybe sort of turn one. But even then, you've got to get such a good run out of that final corner to gain the slipstream, to get alongside the car, and then be ultra brave on the inside. And honestly, we've seen cars defend going around the outside of turn one before because of a slight bank on the corner, the camber on the track. You can hold quite a bit of speed around the outside, and then the following corner is you're back on the inside again. So we'll see some side-by-side action. For me, the opening lap or two is going to be very, very important, because turn 1, turn 2, 3 and 4, we do see a lot of door banging side by side, 2 and 3 cars wide through there, so that I feel sure, no disrespect to the lads, but I feel sure there'll be 1 or 2 cars off there, because it will be so tight through there and the conditions are just not favouring close tight racing tonight. I think that the utmost respect's got to be given to the fact that it's Zandvoort and it's wet.
But crucially as well, this is a race that come season close, you're looking at the championship points table thinking, where could I have picked up points? Tonight could be one of those races where make one of those mistakes in the wet. Unforced error, I think, is a term we'll probably use, because we could see the grids separate out as drivers get up to speed and find their own little space on the track. Could be looking back at this at the end of the season thinking, if only I had just taken my time and made it through cleanly, maybe driven a bit conservatively at times in wheel-to-wheel battle, maybe opting to lose the fight to win the war at the end of the championship. So grid pulls away then. Kieran Fidago leads away a field of 32 cars here at Zandvoort. He's joined on the front row by Reece Spence Rob. It's a Ferrari 1-3 then, with Klaas Vester in the number 90 on the second row, with Clyde Bainey in the 85 McLaren. Then it's Mattis Marquez in the number 20 in P5, with Dimitri de Knoyt's 114 Bentley in position 6 alongside Sem Spenkelink and Jitse Medema, with Nard Cox and Andreas Garlin rounding out the top 10. Garlin seems to have put on a number of recovery drives this season so far, and I'm sure he'll be hoping for a clean run through the hour tonight. Then it's Dave Jr. who starts in position 11. He'll be looking to repeat the form that made him a force to be reckoned with at the opening round at Laguna Seca, where he so nearly took race victory. Then it's Thomas van Schaik in the number 299 Aston Martin, ahead of Joan Planas and Joris Everleens, and Rich Smith and Chris Pinchbeck complete your top 8 rows, with then Cliff Bulker and Dennis Berkman P17 and 18. The sole Porsche, the bright red number 2 car. I think we're going to see another race from Cliff where he battles his way through the pack and pulls some fantastic moves out of the bag. Then it's Dennis Berkman, Benjamin Simmers and Dan Lenson, with Mike Abranhoser rounding out your top 20 in the number 21 McLaren, and Chris Vickers, Nelson Abranhoser, Simon Pike, Jezerif in 24th place. And then to complete the final few rows, we have Bas van Mellis, Damien de Kaiser, Tim Niebauer, Zander Vale, Patrick Treffers, Tim Krull and Evan Natafas completes your grid of 32 cars. Thank you very much to everyone who's watching along. Grid Finder dropping in the Facebook chat saying good evening to you too. Thank you very much for joining the action. Everyone as well in the YouTube chat, Jan Barth, Patrick Vance, hello, good evening. Settle in, guys. I hope you've got all your water, your snacks, everything you need. And if you've got a seatbelt, it's worth just tightening it, because you're going to have to strap in for a very exciting and thrilling race here at Zandvoort. Lovely stuff. So we get ready then. Kieran Vidago lines up, gets ready to go racing. Thank you everyone tuning in on YouTube. Patrick Vance, those snacks, great idea. Well, Patrick, don't go anywhere. You haven't got time now because they are lined up. They are forming their formation as we come up to take the green flag and get 1 hour of racing underway here at a soaking wet Zandvoort circuit. The track is wet, track temperature 16 degrees, ambient 13. We're going to see rain continue throughout the 60 minutes of this race. Vidago then leads them toward the green flag, and we get ready to go here at Zandvoort. Reece Spence Rob will be looking to hang a move around the outside at turn 1, and we go green. Vidago instantly tries to close the door slightly on Spence Rob. There's movement towards the middle of the pack as the McLarens look for a way through, but up the middle, unfortunately, that's Klaas Vester who sends Reece Spence Rob spinning round as well. Dimitri de Knoit facing the wrong way, gets head-butted by an SSRI Aston Martin as well as Cliff Balker. Then he gets backed off the track into the grass, so there's been a traffic jam and a pile up at turn 1, which is sometimes what we see here at Zandvoort with so many cars piling into turn 1. It's more than understandable, but Vidago gets the whole shot out front. He's followed by the second Ferrari there. There's also the McLaren in P3 has all been shuffled around. Sem Spenklik now up to P4 as they fly through the opening couple of sectors. Sorry for my misidentification. It wasn't Klaas Vester who caused the spin there in turn 1. But we'll continue on and see where things were. It was Clyde Bainey actually in the orange McLaren. He's now harried by Sem Spenklik. Nard Cox has jumped up the order already. There's a couple of drivers in pit lane. De Knoit and Zander Vale look to have immediately jumped back to their garages after the turn 1 incident. And let's see how the train manages to stretch out in this opening lap. But Steve, that's what we so often see here at Zandvoort, and exactly what you said, the banking of turn 1 can allow cars to run side by side, but factor in it's lap 1, everyone's piling into that first turn, and it's very wet indeed. We're going to see a collision.
Yeah, I mean, considering the conditions and the amount of cars piling in there, I thought the guys did pretty well. You know, obviously there was that little bit of an issue at the start, and it just compounded it because it happened right at the front of the pack, and the guys behind obviously didn't have anywhere to go, and they're unsighted. You know, there's so many cars they can't see it. So I think all in all, the guys did very, very well to actually manage to avoid more carnage, as it were, and it's testament to the driving standards here. Some great stuff, but you can see the puddles in the gravel traps. It's absolutely soaking here. The track is officially wet. The rain is supposed to ease off slightly, but I don't think it's going to make any difference to us tonight, and I think it's a case of it's going to be a race of attrition, and it's going to be favour the brave, those guys that can find that grip and maintain the pace tonight and not crack under pressure. Vidago currently out there in the lead at the moment, and he's just got building up to almost a second gap, and what he could do with now is Spenklik, Bani and Wester all battle. He could do with those to trip over each other. At the moment it's definitely a battle for third place between Bani and Spenklik, and first and second just seem to be almost breaking away.
Well, you say that Kieran needs the others behind to start tripping over each other. He nearly tripped over himself there on the second sector through the fast right hander. Kieran getting a big old slide on in the number 4 Ferrari, and Kieran's season has been one I'm sure he'll say what if. Really, Paul Ricard seemed like a race that he had turned things around, using an alternate strategy to take his first podium of the season. He'll be hoping to continue that form tonight and hopefully take to the virtual rostrum. So we ride on board on the splitter of Sem Spenkling. You can see the spray being thrown up by the cars in front and just how much he's fighting that number 1 Dark Sky McLaren 720S through the final turn. All kinds of slips and slides through the long right-hander that concludes the lap here at Zandvoort. Then down in towards turn 1, and Clyde Bainey in front using a slightly different line. I think he just ran in deep, but with the banking able to just catch it and V off the corner. Sometimes you've got to use those different lines in these wet weather conditions, as Tim Niebauer makes a move there. He's side by side with Simon Pike on the run up towards turns 2 and 3. Looks to have got the move done as Pike runs wide, tries to rejoin safely. Yes, he does, gets back in line. No collisions, no harm done there. And Steve, if you're Sem here, you know you've had a very strong season so far. You are a multiple champion in this category in the SRHI community. You know how to get the job done across the season. Do you take the risk here? Do you take the risk and have a look at Clyde Bainey and chase on for the podium, or do you, 4.5 minutes into a race, just try and settle into a rhythm of some kind?
I think personally, I would try and settle into a rhythm. I'd try and find that grip, as we keep saying, and just try and fight. Rhythm is all important around here tonight, and it's about being consistent in these conditions, because other drivers will make mistakes. You just need to be that driver that doesn't, and it doesn't matter if you're not the fastest man on track. You've got to be the most consistent man on track, and you'll finish well. And a championship is about finishing well. It's not necessarily about winning every race. It's about being there or thereabouts and accumulating those points, as we all know. So I think Sem needs to, he needs to consolidate what he's doing now. Where he is in fourth. He runs, just watching him on the other camera there, he just ran very wide out of the final turn. Kieran Vidago setting the fastest lap at the moment, so he's really stamping his authority on this race and eking out a gap at the front. He's now 2 seconds up the road, so Kieran is really finding the grip, and he's finding the limits of adhesion this evening, and he's setting two, trying to set a gap, and it's looking like at the moment Wester's maybe just a cork in the bottle for the guys behind. I think Spenkling's definitely got more pace. He's definitely closing that gap up and losing a bit of time here and there, but then closes the gap up again. So I think if Sem could get a way through, he may make some progress onto Vidago, but he's got 2 cars in between him and Kieran at the moment, and Kieran's getting his foot down and trying to extend that gap and build a safety cushion in.
Well, Kieran Vidago flying out front, a 1 minute 40.581. His previous lap, that would have seen him inside the top 10 in qualifying, as Andreas Garlin looks to make amends for the opening lap. He slides one up the inside of Dennis Berkman, who gets the cutback on the exit of the corner. They are side by side into the right-hander at turn 9. Let's see who holds out here. They are still alongside 2 Aston Martins this time. Garlin's on the inside line through the tricky turn 10. They'll apply the power. We've got the short blast down towards the Hans-Erk spot at turn 11 and 12. Up over the crest and behind, Bas van Melis is looking to get involved. No, actually, that is an out-of-position Lamborghini, I'm sure of it, as we see the 2 Aston Martins now file down into line, and Andreas Garlin sets his sights on Chris Binchbeck's Aston Martin. So there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Aston Martins altogether, occupying spaces 11 down to 16. As a new fastest lap, Kieran Vidago, a 1:40. Just as I say that, you'd say Medema. I wonder if they could hear me, Steve, just as I start saying that they're going quicker. Medema flying in the number 5 Ferrari. He's closing an 8/10 gap on Sem Spenkling, who we see on screen now. And this group of cars is starting to bunch up as Vidago checks out at the front of the race. We are 7.25 minutes through the 60-minute blast from flag to flag. Bester potentially the cork in the bottle here. We'll have to see, as Spenkling's doing what he needs to do at the moment. Stay clean, stay out of trouble, just follow the cars in front and allow them to make the errors, but things are going to change once Medema continues to close that gap in the 36 Ferrari and potentially start applying the pressure on the McLaren in front. It is a Ferrari 1-2, Vidago 2.7 seconds over Klaas Vester's number 90 car at the front of shot there. And this is going exactly the way Kieran Vidago needs it to, isn't it, Steve? He's got a little bit of a margin to play with now. Not only can he relax into his pace, but he continue doing what he's doing, knowing it's seeing that gap extend, and also it always brings a smile to your face knowing that the drivers behind it are closing up and potentially starting to battle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when when the fastest lap came in there from Medema, I think if Sem's noticed that, that will have certainly raised some alarm bells for him, because obviously he's totally focused on that car in front at the moment. But when you see the car behind, only he's sort of, well, about half a second down, just over, but setting fastest laps. He's closing up on you, he's coming to get you, and the worst place to be is the meat and the sandwich, as it were, when you are faster than the guy in front, but the guy behind you is also at least on pace with you, so he's going to start piling the pressure on Sem as well, and that could curtail his forward motion. If he gets caught up defending, he could then lose touch with the cars in front. Vidago 2.8 seconds up the road now, so he's definitely not storming away, but it's half a second here and half a second there, and it's all adding building up to a nice just under 3 seconds lead now, so he's definitely got his head down and moving forward. Still 50 minutes of this race to go, still raining, still very wet, still a few more incidents to come, I do believe, but hopefully these guys can keep it clean. And Sem is really piling pressure on now, looking to try and get up the inside. He's got his nose in, and it's very tentative was that. I think he was expecting Manny to come across him, and I think he backed out of that move. That could have ended badly there, but great driving from both. But Sem making his intentions known. He's not hanging about, he's sticking that nose in, he's wanting to open that door and slide that car through.
I was going to say, Spenkelink looking for a way past. A couple of times now he showed the nose of the number 1 720S McLaren. Looking for a way past Barney now. He can feel the pressure from Medema behind as Simon Pike looks to have come unstuck there in the number 13 Dynamic Motorsports Aston Martin. He drops down the order. And here now is Spenkelink's best opportunity. A good run out of the final corner. Ooh, dips 2 wheels over the curb there. Tuck in the slipstream. Hopefully get the overlap on the car down into the first corner called Tarzan. A fantastic corner name, if I do say so myself, but not enough overspeed there for Spenkelink to get the move done. He's now having to find another way past around the rest of the lap as Andreas Garlin looks for a way past Chris Pinchbeck in towards turn 1. He tries to get a cutback line and get underneath the other Aston Martin, and he does so. So they're side by side now into turn 2. Garlin on the inside for 3. Can Pinchbeck hold it the long way around? Yes, he does. And that should allow him to cut off the line into the long turn 4 and hold on to the position. So it's no change there between Pinchbeck and Garlin in the battle for P12 as Kieran Vidago continues to extend his lead. We're inside at the first 10 minutes now of the race. Vidago 2.8 seconds ahead of Vesta. Then it's this battle pack on screen as Bainey's dropped back from Vesta now, so 1.4 seconds between the number 90 Ferrari and the number 85 McLaren. Could be as a result of the pressure being applied by this man, Sem Spenkelink, who I'm certain is feeling the pressure of Medema behind as they're all together on track, separated by just under a second of those 3 cars, so very close indeed, as there's a Nissan running wide there, potentially being lapped, I believe, as Andreas Garlin and a number of cars fire their way through. In fact, it looks like Garlin has potentially had a spin.
He's been off,
stumbled back into the pack. Yes, and there's Chris Pinchbeck as well. So the 2 Aston Martins that were battling have potentially come to blows. It certainly shows the symptoms of it, as they're now behind the number 313 Nissan of Patrick Treffers, the bright green car, and I think Benjamin Simmers as well has got through as Pinchbeck resorts back to pit lane, and that's hardly surprising. So hopefully Pinchbeck is feeling a little bit better after this race, but that certainly won't be improving his mood.
No, Chris, I spoke to him today. He's tested positive for COVID and he's really
sorry, Steve. Just going to say, Medema behind has just gone flying off at turn 4, manages to get the Ferrari gathered up and return to the racing surface, but he's lost a lot of time to Spenkelink, now dropping, I'm sure of it, outside of a second from the number 1 McLaren. 2.2 seconds, so all that hard work gone to waste for the driver of the number 36. Sorry, Steve, continue.
No, I was just saying, I spoke to Chris early today and he's tested positive for COVID and he's feeling really rough. I was very surprised when I saw him online this evening practicing, so I had a quick chat with him and he was looking forward to racing, but yeah, you know what it's like when you're feeling really rough, the concentration levels, so I not surprised to see him quitting there, and Banny just getting a little bit loose and a little bit sideways there, and Spenklink's right back on the back end of that McLaren ahead of him now, and he's going to resume applying the pressure that we know Sem can without having to look over his shoulder for a few laps at least. I'm sure Medina will be catching him up again very soon, as he has done once already, but Sem's definitely got the hammer down again now and looking to put some more pressure on.
Well, Chris Hill in the YouTube chat echoing our thoughts as well. We hope you get well soon, Chris, and hopefully we'll see you back out racing in the SSRI competition soon, as Baz Van Mellis looks to be involved in a joyous little battle pack here behind the 236 of Benjamin Simmers, who's potentially made his way past, and Andreas Garlin having to defend from the Jaguar of Dan Lentz and into the chicane. Managed to all make it through cleanly. Now Spenkelink's got a bit of time. He's without the pressure behind from Medema, so now would be a great chance to make the pass with that buffer of 2.6 seconds back to the number 36. We ride on board down on the splitter of the number 1 McLaren through this wonderful sweeping dune section, up over the crest and down into Sheevlack. Throw the car in. You're aiming for an apex that you can't see when you arrive at the corner. It's such a difficult turn. Then we go into this very technical outer section of the circuit. Looks to get the overlap on Bainey in front, but can't. Catches the slide on the exit as well. Through turn 9 and up towards turn 10 as the track weaves from right to left. It's not really closing up too much, but potentially trying to line up an exit there through turn 10. And just as I say that, catches a little bit of slide. Bainey's able to just keep a car length or two in front of the number 1 car. As Reece Spence Robb is side by side with the Bentley of Rich Smith, I think he's gone the long way round there at turn 10. Gains the position up to P9, the number 48 car, on a move after starting right at the front of the grid alongside Kieran Vidago's race undone in that opening lap. He's got 45 minutes though to make amends. He's on the move already up to P9 and now 1.7 seconds behind Nard Cox. As I was going to say, it's Clyde Bainey dipping to pit lane. It would have seemed very early, but in fact just defending. Is this the chance though for Sem Spenkling? Yes, he goes to the inside. 2 McLarens side by side. Spenkling trying to use the inside line as Clyde Bainey holds all the way around the outside. They're still locked together, the 2 McLarens, in towards turn 3. Spenkling up the inside, can't get the job done. Bainey able to hold the position for now, but Sem drives it in deep to turn 4. Hoping to use the NASCAR high line, but to no avail. He has to drop back and accept that he can't get the move done as they fly through the S's. Nose to tail, it's an 8-wheel McLaren 720S as they go over the crest. And I wonder if Spenkling made the move, as once again Andreas Garlin looks to make a pass on Bas van Mellis down in P18. The order has stayed the same. 3 and 4. Get the feeling though that this is the opportunity he needs once again. No, Bainey does just enough to stay in front. And after all of that, Steve, all of the attempts and all of the side-by-side, blue and yellow Ferrari of Jitse Medema has closed right back in again. And that buffer that Spenkling potentially has evaporated as he runs wide on the exit of turn 10. Medema's now up onto his left-hand side as they come down towards the chicane. Medema's going to go the long way around just. Yes, brilliant move from the 36. Sem's gone from aggressor, unfortunately losing one position very quickly there, from attack to defence to losing the position. Sem down to P5, and Steve shows you how quickly things can change.
Yeah, absolutely, very, very quickly indeed. Excuse me with my croaky voice myself this evening, but that might just play into Banny's hands now. He's been struggling obviously with the pressure of Spenkling, although he has dealt it very well, and he proved my point earlier when I said you can defend by going round the outside in T1, and he did just that, and a great drive from him, great defensive manoeuvre. But now Spenkling is going to be challenging that Ferrari ahead, I'm sure, and it might just hold them 2 guys up and keep the pressure off Banny for a little bit. But just notice the timings. Vidago is not pulling away from P2 Wester at the moment. That gap is staying around the 2.7 second mark, so things have levelled out. Not sure whether Kieran's found a level and that's him, that's where he's pushing to, and he's driving within his limits, or whether Wester's found a bit more pace and he's just he's managing to match Kieran. But all in all, those two have fought a good 4 seconds up the road from Banny, who is just under a second ahead of the battle behind him for P4.
Now, factor this in, Steve. It looks like the weather forecast has slightly changed. We're seeing rain decreasing in the next 10 minutes, and then in half an hour's time we're looking at potentially cloud only and the rain abating. So track has changed from wet to damp. The drivers will know that. So we could see another ingredient thrown into the recipe here this evening. 42 minutes have just elapsed. They're still on the clock though. A long way to go in this race, Steve. It looks like things are hotting up.
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see from the timings on the screen, things are pretty stagnant, as we said, between P1 and P2, and it's just as you were there, and it looks like things are settling to the point that there's no pressure being applied from either driver. Well, having said that, Vidago there just goes and pumps in another fastest lap of a 140.06, and Klaas Wester a 140.18, so he's not far behind. He's literally a tenth off what Kieran's doing. So absolutely, these two ahead are putting the laps in. They are the ones on the move, and certainly stamping their authority on the race, because the guys behind, I mean, last lap Medema, he did a 140.8, so he was only like literally a hundredth off Vidago's time, and Banny was half a second off, and so was Spenkelink. So yeah, there's not many guys on that fast pace at the minute. Certainly Vidago and Wester are setting the pace, and they're looking quite safe at the moment, although we have got the pit stop to come.
Indeed, drivers will need to make one mandatory stop, which is listed as being a fuel-only stop. With track conditions changing, I wouldn't be surprised if drivers try and go as long as they can into the 60-minute race, potentially pick up some slick tyres towards the end. For context, Vidago's time, a 1:40.062, would see him beat his pole position time by the best part of a tenth of a second. And in P2, Klaas Vester's previous lap would have seen him on the front row of the grid as well. So it shows you how much pace is currently being displayed by positions 1 and 2, the two Ferraris leading the way. Vidago, however, is still losing time. Gap has come down to Vester now, 2.1 seconds, as we drop back here into the group and into the battle pack as ever, as for the first time this evening, Klaas Vester dips under the 140 mark, a 1:39.94 rate. So I get the feeling that track conditions are very much improving, and that we could see times continue to tumble, and the pace in this race take another step up. Here is Simmers on screen in the Ferrari. He's locked in battle with Andreas Garlin, who's found himself in the middle of the battle once again this evening, and then fighting over positions P16 and 17. Here we are focusing on Spenkelink now, who's managed to gather himself back up and is closed on Itse Medema. He's less than 3/10 of a second behind, and it's all but nothing when you look at it from this camera shot. They are nose to tail through the second sector here at Zandvoort, using all the curb on the inside, trying to find any ounce of performance he can, as the pair of them are continuing to close on Clyde Bainey, who somehow has held on to that P3 position through all of this battling. He's been very heads-up defensive driving, running around the Steve. That's rule number 1 in the Steve Proudly Racing Bible, is the best form of defence. It's just sticking to your line, not running off line. Saying that, they're all bunched up, and Barney looks to have made a mistake. And Sem Spenklink's going to pounce up the inside of Itse Medema into the penultimate corner. He's got the job done. He's going to close the door on the exit, and P4 is now back in the hands of Spenkelink, as you see as they thunder down towards T1, and he goes defensive already.
I'm just writing my copyright notice out for you using my phrases there, Tim. I hope my check's in the post. But yeah, I mean, indeed, you know, it's you may mock me, but the best way to defend is to drive your lines up until you no longer can, and when you no longer can, that's when they're trying to poke their nose down the inside. Because if you start defending, you're too slow, you're slowing down, and that's what we see all the time. The saving grace for Banny at the moment is Spenkelink or Medema, whoever's up behind him, can't launch a full-on attack because they have got one eye over their shoulder looking at the aggressor from behind. So you know, I think it's saving him a little bit. We saw Spenkelink earlier on in the race, he almost got the job done when he wasn't under pressure, but as soon as he comes under pressure, it's stopping him from launching that all-out attack. Banny's doing an excellent job. I think he's doing a fantastic job. He won't mind us saying he's quite close. We just see Medema running very deep there. I think Banny checked up and Spenkelink had to break that bit early, and that nearly caused an issue. But yeah, I think he's doing a fantastic job, and he won't mind us saying that he's maybe not got the pace of those cars that are chasing him now, the aggressors behind, but he's certainly doing a good job of holding on to that position. Whether he can hold on to it through the pit stops, whether there's going to be an undercut of some type, not quite sure, but he's doing a cracking job so far.
Absolutely, and speaking of a cracking job, Klaas Vester is continuing to close the gap on Kieran Vidago. He's taken another 3/10 out of the Ferrari driver on the previous lap. Let's see now as they cross the start-finish line what the gap has come down to. Another fastest lap from the number 90 Ferrari, so the gap is coming down for the race lead, down to 1.2 seconds, as behind Barney and Spenkelink set personal best, so the two McLarens as well finding pace here at the Zandvoort circuit as conditions look to be improving. It might visually still look like it's raining, but in terms of the times, in terms of the weather forecast, and crucially that track status indicator, that the shift from wet to damp is certainly enough to start bringing the pace into this sub 140 bracket. Spenklink's going to be looking for a way past Bani anytime soon. He seems to drop off and then wind up for another attack and go again on his fellow McLaren driver, who's managed to hold on to that P3 for the entirety of the race so far.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you're a man after my own heart. As we're looking at Spenklink, they're maybe going to try and put it up the inside, but I like stats, I like numbers, I like information, and the track has gone from wet to damp, and I'm just wondering, is Spenklink's going to chuck it up the inside? Is he? No, not quite. Just, oh, he's so respectful, he's Sem, isn't he? He nearly rang the bell and said, can I come through then, without just sending it. But no, I would like to know. I'm wondering if Vidago's maybe suffering with temps or pressures, or whether he's not suffering but Westers have come to him. Maybe he's got a slightly better setup now, because it's tyre pressures that will make all the difference in these conditions tonight, because obviously that's ultimately what your contact patch is with the tarmac. So maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of change in the setups of the guys with the track temp, as we see that P2 again 39.8. He's really applying the pressure now, and that gap is coming down. In fact, that gap is coming right down as I'm cut away, and I'm going to cut back because Sem was sending it and he didn't ring the bell that time. He did just send it, and he sent it up the inside, but that's cost him, and it may have cost him a position as well.
Medema's going to try and utilise the opportunity. No, he backs out of it as well. Spenkling had the job done for a matter of yards there. Bani slides back through at turn 1 and holds on to P3 for now, but at the front of the order, Vidago's gap has been completely decimated by his fellow Ferrari driver. Klaas Vester has closed up as Bani looks to have let Sem Spenkling by there on the run up towards Skivlak. He's let one McLaren through and he tries to close the door on Jitse Medema. Has he held on to the position? Yes, just about, but the Ferrari driver is, I'm sure, going to feel slightly enraged by that one. Bani slams the door shut through the fast turn 7, and as they head out towards turn 9 in the middle sector, Spenkling has got through and is already starting to kick on and clear off as Jitse Medema heads up the inside, and there's contact with Bani, sends the McLaren spinning. Coming through the middle of that, Marquette manages to dive through, and then Thomas van Schuyt tries to get through as well. All ended in tears. Got the impression that Bani maybe slammed the door a little bit too hard for Medema's liking. But this is the battle for the race lead as we near the halfway point of the race. Now, look at the two Ferraris joined together, and look at the fact that the track conditions are still changing. We're nearing the end of the rain here at Zandvoort. Never thought I'd be able to say that, but it is coming to an end, and this is going to play the more into Klaas Vester, we feel, at this point of the race. Vidago has lost pace, lost a lot of time. Bear in mind that about 10 minutes ago he had a near 3-second lead, as Vester has managed to just chip away at that. Now there's an 8-wheel Ferrari 488 leading the race. And looking at the timings there, it's just been, it's been chipping away. A couple of laps ago, nearly 9/10 of a second taken out of the race lead by Klaas Vester. They are ahead of the field on pace, clearly, but starting to catch traffic and potentially going to start tripping over each other as we head towards the middle part of the race and into the second half. Vidago certainly feeling under pressure as we head through turn 9 and up the inside. Vester gets the cut back on his fellow Ferrari. They are side by side into turn 10. Vidago's got the high ground on the inside, but no, he spins off to the inside, and that allows Vester to claim the race lead around the outside. Vidago recovers back to the track, but all of that time gone. And in his rear mirror now, he's got Sem Spenkling, who has a fantastic run out of the corner in comparison. And they are locked together as they head down towards the chicane into the right-hander. Vidago holds on, but he really seems to be struggling with the Ferrari, Steve. It looks like potentially the pressures are starting to show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely going to put money on there's an issue with the setup, with the track temp, something like that. Something's happened to the setup on that Ferrari, because it looked like originally Kieran Vidago really was just managing the pace, managing the position. You know, he was doing everything he needed to do, he was setting the fastest laps. But then he's quite literally he's having to defend now, and he's defending from Sem, as we see here. He's forcing Sem to the outside. We do know the pass can be completed around the outside. He just needs to find that grip. He's going to push wide and force Sem to back off. But Sem's still down there. He's going to be round the outside for the next corner, and Vidago just manages to defend that. I was nearly tripping over my words, and I was almost lost for words then. But Vidago manages to maintain that second position. But you have to say, looking at the way he's driving at the moment, it's a matter of time. And is he going to hang on to a podium place?
Well, the pendulum has swung, and it's swung very hard. Not in the favour of Vidago. Aaron in the YouTube chat saying looks like Vidago's overheated his tyres, and it does seem that way as he's fighting the rear of the number 4 SSRI Ferrari out into the second sector of the lap. He's gone from leading this race fairly comfortably in the opening 15 minutes to now battling to keep his spot on the podium as Spenkeling looks to the inside, then opts to go to the outside. Now, if Sem was able to see what happened in front of him, he was able to see Vidago spinning on the inside line, you wonder whether it'd be a good idea to try and send it around the inside of turn 10 and potentially force Kieran into a repeat of the same mistake as they head into this final sector of the lap. 7.9 seconds now, Class Vesta's lead. So the number 90 Ferrari has really cleared off thanks to that mistake from Vidago. And now the race is in his hands. It's going to be about when the drivers turn their minds towards pit stops, as now Vidago defends to the inside, all the way over to the pit wall on the run down towards Tarzan. Spenkeling dives to the outside. Will he go the long way round at turn 1? The door has been closed very firmly, but they are still side by side. Aston Martin on the inside, Ferrari on the outside as they head up towards the right hand. Sorry, I've got my cars completely wrong there. McLaren on the outside, Ferrari now on the outside of turn 4 as they go around the long bank left-hander and up over the crest. Spenkeling got the job done, and Steve, as is always at Zandvoort, sometimes you don't make the move in one corner, it takes 2 or 3 turns to complete the pass.
Yeah, more so at this track, as we said at the beginning, you know, there's quite a few corners, they will go side by side. There's not many corners where you can actually just get that job done in one corner. It's there's some good defensive lines around here, as we saw. That second place seesaw in switching backwards and forwards between Spenkeling and Vidago between 2 or 3 corners. Vidago's gone again. Those tyres must be overheating for him now. He just needs to hold the brakes, let everyone drive around him, just stay there, don't do anything silly. And it's looking like, is that Barney that's that hit him and spun? Yeah,
it looks like Barney got collected by the Ferrari and then spun as well. That's Nard Cox returning to the track as well after making contact with Barney's McLaren. So it's all come crumbling down for a number of drivers there through turn 9. Barney there off to the side of the track and recovering to the circuit, but he's dropped a long way down. Looks like he's in position 12 now. So from holding on to P3 to now, he's outside the top 10. As Claas Vesta actually looks to have headed down pit lane, so our race leader is in the pits at the halfway mark now. With the track conditions changing, with the weather set to change as well, this is a very interesting call from the driver of the number 90. I'll be interested to see what his thoughts were behind this at the end of the race, and I'm sure at the checkered flag we'll know whether this was a good decision or a bad one, as Andreas Garlin in P20 continues his fight with Dan Lenson and Joris Everleens for a position inside the top 20 cars out there on track, as the race really is heading into a crucial stage now as they go through to complete lap 19 and onto their 20th lap. Claas Vesta had about a 8 and a bit second lead at the front of preceding. Let's see where he returns to the circuit as Johan Planis here in the number 81 flies through Shivlak with his crosshairs firmly set on Nard Cox, and the somewhat hampered Kieran Vidago now is in P6. Beneficiaries from that, not only the pit stop from our race leader, but also the drama that kicked off as well. Mattis Marquez and Rhys Spence-Robber now up to P2 and P3. Xavier Dima in P4. Thomas van Schaik as well up in P5 now. So the order is changing as we head into this middle point of the race. Class Vesta rejoining then. It looks like he's down outside the top 20.
His pit stop, Tim, it was a 33.5 second stationary stop, so that would suggest a tyre change potentially. So whether he's changed tyres just to adjust pressures or whether he's risking it and going for dries, I can't see that it's dry enough for the slicks yet, but it may well have been that he's changed tyres just to adjust the pressures for the conditions as they change. Looking like Kieran Vidago's diving into the pits as well. So yeah, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, definitely 33 seconds stationary would indicate a tyre change.
Race. That was the Audi of Ijezarif, I think, spun to the inside as well there at turn 1. So it's all changed, and factor this in as well. Sem Spenkelink, now the fastest man we've seen so far as a spin. Andreas Garland getting collected by Joris Everleens there, the spin at turn 1. And that's going to allow Patrick Treffers to try and go the long way around. Nearly contact between the Aston Martin and the Nissan, but Patrick has moved up in position. Andreas Garland, unfortunately, has slipped back. Here was our erstwhile race leader, Class Vesta, number 90, now back out on track in P23. Let's see if he can run cleanly as Johan Planas is skating on the wet grass there, spinning and looping. He'll have to be careful when he rejoins. Dennis Berkman able to get off the trajectory of a collision course, but that's going to drop Planas down and outside the top 10. And a number of people in the chat talking about the strategy. Bart Sverink say, fuel enough to wait for the dry conditions. Yeah, well, will the dry conditions come? Because it's meant to cloud over. The track is staying damp for now, but I wonder if we're going to have the conditions such as the temperature change, to bring about the moisture being lifted from the race surface. Let's keep an eye though on things, as Spenkelink is really making a charge at the front of the field. He set 2 consecutive laps sub 1 minute 40, so he's absolutely flying as the number 1 McLaren, and this could be his bid to put his stamp on the race lead and potentially close the gap to the early stop from Class Vesta, as Johan Planas is now headed to pit lane. Probably a good call considering he's already lost time this lap with a spin. And here is Vesta. They're heading out and across the start finish line. Steve, a really difficult point of the race now, because you've worked out where you are on track, potentially who it is you're fighting and who you need to beat, but also you've got these other problems to start weighing in now, such as traffic, other cars that have made their stops, as well as what's going on with the conditions.
Yeah, I mean, and looking at the delta, the laps there, I mean, obviously ignore the fact he went in, but his last lap was a 140.3, Spenklink's was a 39.9, so there was almost half a second to set in Spenklink's favour there on the last lap. So going to be interesting to see how this pans out, and I think it's probably safe to say West is still on wet tyres. I'm not sure the dry conditions are going to come. We've got 22 minutes left. I think they're absolutely right in the chat. If you've got the fuel to keep going, just keep going on the tyres you are, as long as your tyre pressures aren't too far out. Keep going as you are, and then just do a splash and dash at the end and tiptoe around if you have to, because 30 seconds for a pit stop compared to literally a 4 second, 5 second pit stop is a big difference. It's going to be interesting to see, and interestingly, obviously there's not many people taking the option to pit as we speak.
Well, as well in the YouTube chat, we're seeing Bart Sverink and G82M4 confirming that Vesta was running out of fuel, so he had to make his stop there. Now, do not adjust your screens. Your vision is correct. The rain has stopped here at Zandvoort. We are now just under heavy cloud at the 4.3 kilometre circuit in the Netherlands. It's a rare sight indeed so far this evening, but the rain has definitely stopped, and drivers are now working with a damp and potentially drying track. There's no extra liquid is added to it falling from the sky. It's now very much going to start drying up. Let's see how things progress. Steve doesn't think it will dry up enough over the remaining 22 minutes, but if this season has been anything to go by, then the unexpected can certainly be expected, as Mike Abrenhoser, number 21 McLaren, is looking to just start to gap away from Tim Krul and Chris Vickers behind. They're locked in a fight, number 19 Lamborghini and the 147 McLaren.
The thing Sorry, Tim. I'm going to say the thing you've got to remember though is as we see Spengling still pumping in the fastest laps as that fuel load comes down, and he hasn't pitted yet, so he's on 40-minute old tyres. Those tyres have done a serious number of laps now, and he's still managing to get fastest laps in 23 laps completed. But what you've got to think is that 30 seconds to change tyres. So let's say on a conservative side, it's 20 seconds longer to in the pits to change tyres. I think it's more than that realistically, but let's say it's 20 seconds. You've then got to find the lap time worth of 20 seconds to make up, to make it worthwhile changing those tyres. And yeah, it can be done, but I don't know if those conditions, if that track's going to dry up enough for them to find that sort of time in the remaining time we have of this race.
So let's see then. I mean, we're heading into the final 20 minutes and still a large majority of the field are yet to pit. Leading our pit stoppers is our former race leader, Klaas Vester, in the number 90. He's down in 19th position with Kieran Vidago in 22nd. On net P2, if you like, with pit stops taking place ahead of Johan Plannis, Andreas Garland, Bas van Mellis and Dave Jr. as Thomas van Schaik pits from the top 10. He's now going to just trickle down the timing tower, and we'll see where he emerges on pit lane. Patrick Treffers as well, heading to his mandatory stop. Here is the battle for the top 10. Tim Niebauer just staying ahead of Benjamin Simmers on the run through turns 8 and 9. Into the final 20 minutes here, and it's certainly starting to build to a crescendo as Chris Vickers looks for a way around the outside of Tim Kroll at turn 10. The McLaren driver now tries to find a cutback on the exit of the corner and apply the throttle, but he slides wide all over the grass and has to cross his arms over to catch a slide there and continue on his merry way. Lucky to escape that one, as the Team Abbey racing car now has a gap to close back to the Lamborghini, who is in himself 3.6 seconds off the back of Mike Abrenhosen. Out the front of the field, Spenklink's continuing to set the pace, another 1:39.7 lap going his way, so the number 1 McLaren certainly has the speed at the moment, and he's not matched by anyone else on track, so he certainly is the fastest man out there, mastering this mid-stage of the conditions. As J-Bot Racing in the YouTube chat says, he'll swap to tyres as soon as it goes greasy. Well, with the pace improving, Steve, it's a real, brain teaser, this one, as to what the drivers should be doing. A number of the drivers, if we were to go on majority here, think that going as long as possible is the best solution.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in these conditions, with it being the sprint race, I think go as long as possible, and I 100% agree. You wait for it to get greasy, and then that's the point when you'd start to see a switch over in the lap times. And when I say a switch over in the lap times, for those that aren't aware, that are just joining us, there will be that optimum lap time between the wets and the dries, where there's a time achievable with both. Your wets sort of drop down to a time where the slicks would be the better tyre, albeit still a little bit sketchy. Still got to be really careful on them, but that's the way it is, and it'll get close to that once it starts to get greasy.
Well, we've got another important stop taking place as Medina in the number 36 Ferrari, a driver battling for the podium in the opening half of this race. In fact, it's the opening 3/4 of this race. The event has flown by, such has been the just the pace of the action here. Let's see where he rejoins, because that's going to be a crucial marker as to what the best strategy was to be, as we see Dennis Berkman carrying in an ad board of some kind on the front of his Aston Martin Vantage there as he stops in the pit lane. A number of drivers as well coming to stop, so Berkman, Niebauer, Mike Abrenhoser and Dan Lenson. As we see there on screen, that yellow and blue Ferrari trundling down pit lane, that is Medina. So let's see where he rejoins. It looks like Klaas Vester has gone through. Yep, there he is. So Vester has gone past and has got a sizable lead now over Medina, but crucially, no cars between them. So the cars that we saw fighting towards the front are slowly going to start climbing up the order as these pit stops take place. Wonder though whether pushing too hard, maybe taking a little bit of life out of those tyres on the slightly earlier stop for Classfest. You could see him come a cropper in this final 16 and a quarter minutes. Still plenty to play out though with Spenkling, Reece Spence, Rob Markesh, Nard Cox and Rich Smith all yet to pit, as well as Nelson Abramhoser, Clyde Bailey, Benjamin Simmers, Chris Vickers and Tim Kroll. The top 10 still need to make a stop with less than 16 minutes to go. It's a head-scratching race, this one, and it's all going to continue building to a crescendo. Like we say, as soon as those stops start coming in from the top 10, we get a better picture of who's going to be taking a very well-earned victory here at the Zandvoort circuit. The spray, Steve, as well, was also reduced. We're not seeing that moisture being flung up from the back of the GT3 cars. Really get the impression now, as the puddles look to have cleared as well, that the track is considerably drying up. It still says damp, but just get that feeling that mentally the drivers will see the track improving.
Yeah, and we can see from the onboard from Sam Spenkling, like you say, there is no spray. It's actually looking like you can start to see a little bit of a dry line appearing. Still feel a little bit greasy, I would imagine, but he's still putting those lap times in. You know, his last lap was a 40.6, so it's probably half a second away or just over from his best times. But it's still a competitive time, still a very competitive time, and still on a par with what's going on around him and behind him. So he's under no pressure, Sem, really, other than just to keep going as he is and literally going to the pits for as short a time as possible at the end of this race.
Well, moving off the racing line as well, as he sets a fast-ish lap. A 1:39.2 lowers the bar once again to Sem Spenkling. An absolutely superb time, as we're under 14 and a half minutes to go here. I was just going to say, moving offline on the run down towards turn 1 in an attempt to cool the tyres. Get the feeling just needs to eat that life out of the Pirelli rubber underneath him. Now here is an interesting situation. Sem Spenkling is catching Kieran Vidago because, of course, the number 4 Ferrari has already pitted. So the driver that was once leading the race is now about to be passed and lapped, yet blue flags wave and Vidago stays to the left-hand side to allow Spenkling through. So Vidago goes a lap down, which will of course change as we see Natafas running through the gravel, battling with Benjamin Simmers. It just shows you how jumbled things can get in these 60-minute races with the pit stop, and as well with the conditions we've had. You can find yourself fighting a driver a lap down, previously battling with fighting cars that are emerging from pit lanes on different strategies. You find yourself coming a cropper with a lot of other drivers, particularly on a circuit like Zandvoort. A number of other stops taking place now as well. Nard Cox and Tim Kroll pit from inside the top 10, if I can get my words out, as well as Evan as Tafas. He's boxing from P12. So let's see where these stops see our races resume, because they're going to start filing into line. Get an idea of how much it costs the drivers. Now track conditions have changed to greasy, Steve, so would you take the risk? Would you take the slicks?
Well, I don't know, it's 10 minutes to go. It's just going to see how those lap times, how quick they're going to come to you. What is interesting, on my broadcasting app, it tells me how long they're stationary for in the pits and what the drive time is, so the actual movement time from when they cross the line to leave the pits. And on average it's taking round about 25 seconds of driving time. So regardless of whatever Sem does in the pits, whether he changes tyres, puts a couple of litres of fuel in, he's got 25 seconds roughly pit time to drive down there. Now the gap between him and Westerman at the moment, you would have to say, let's have a look, see where he is on the track very quickly now. He's got yeah, he's got
over a minute, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got enough time to get into the pits and get back out again, if he does everything as he should and he hits that pit box correctly. So I think Sem might edge my bets here and say Sem's done enough to get the lead of this race.
Well, let's ask the YouTube chat, if you're watching on, if you were to pit, would you pit now and would you take slicks or would you stick on the wets? The track looks to have visibly dried You're going to take that risk on a slick set of tyres in the closing minutes of the race. Let's see when that number 1 McLaren comes to pit lane. Spenkeling flies through across the start-finish line, so he stays out for another lap here of the Zandvoort circuit. Here's a fun battle pack brewing here. That fight between Kroll and Niebauer continues on, but it looks like the McLaren of Chris Vickers has lost a spot as well. Closing in behind is Johan Plannis as McLaren runs wide and over the grass, manages to get back on the grey stuff and continue on. They're side by side down into Tarzan. Kroll holds the inside line and keeps the position. That allows Niebauer through though on the McLaren, and in fact opens the door for Johan Plannis. And there's a Bentley waiting in the wings, but I think that car is a lap down, not showing as in the fight. Ooh, looking for a way up the inside, Johan Plannis, is the SSRI at number 76 machine as they come out turn 4 and up over the crest. It's really starting to brew this, because look, the conditions are definitely improving. The times have continued to stay under the 140 mark, Steve, and going to get to a point now where there's drivers out on track with wet tyres that are older than their competitors. They're slightly more potentially up to and over the pressures they want. It's going to be a struggle making it through this final 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just looking at the times, and even all the guys that have pitted, I don't know whether they've put slicks on or not, but their times are not sub 140s. In fact, a lot of them, in the top 10 are 141s. In fact, yeah, everybody down. There's nobody other than Medema and Simmers, who are down in 8th and 9th currently, that are doing they're doing 40.9s. Sem's last lap was a slow one because he has now gone into the pits. So this is where we need to see what's going on between Sem and the previous race leader. Has he done enough to get out in front of Wester? I think he has, but it just depends what he does now in the pits.
Let's see whether the McLaren takes tyres and how long he's in pit lane. Here is Vesta in the main shot in the white, red and black Ferrari, heading down in towards the chicane in the final part of the lap. In the bottom right, in set, is the stationary McLaren of Sem Spenkeling. We've elapsed 30 tours of the Zandvoort circuit, and as Vesta comes into the final corner, it's got a long run down the start-finish straight, and now we see Sem Spenkeling get rolling and exit pit lane onto a lovely clear circuit as well. There is no traffic around him, so he's got time to get up to speed as Vesta is unable to make the jump. Now, Steve, I wonder whether Spenkeling took tyres there. It looks like the stop was very similar in terms of time to Class Vesta. Only about a minute. Is that the difference, though, to take tyres?
Yeah, potentially. I mean,
less fuel. Obviously, he's gone this much further. Less fuel to take. We know that Vesta was running out of fuel as well, so he would have been stationary for the top up.
Spenkeling was stationary for 35.5 seconds, so definitely long enough to take tyres. Interestingly, Wester was stationary for 33 seconds, so Wester's pit stop was actually 2 seconds faster. They were both driving down the pit lane for 26.5 seconds, exactly the same. So that means they hit the pit limiter button at the same time and they released it at the same time, and they both hit their pit box bang on. So yeah, it's a good pit stop from both of them, but Spenkeling was stationary for 2 seconds longer, but he has come back out ahead of Wester, which is more important. I'm not sure why Rich Smith is showing a 6 at the moment, isn't he? I'm not sure if that is a true reflection on Rich's, because we haven't spoke about Rich an awful lot this race. If he has, that's an awesome position for Rich, because I think he had a few issues at the start of the race.
Well, I think that is a legitimate position. Looking on the track map on the right-hand side as well, the number 76, Rich Smith, looks to have leapfrogged his way up the order. He qualified down in 15th place, but looks like just staying clean and out of drama, he's managed to climb up the order. He has made his pit stop as well, so it's a fair position. He's effectively P2 on the road. Let's see if
Rich Smith hasn't taken tyres. Sorry to cut over you there. I'm just looking. He was stationary in the pits for 15 seconds. So he's gained 15 seconds in the pit stop by not taking tyres. and he was actually only moving down. He was down the pit lane for 24.9 seconds, so he was pretty quick. He was late on that pit limiter and you know, early to release it. So he's had a very good pit stop. It's whether he can nurse these wets. We can see a dry line. We did see him going down the wet side of the pit wall there just to cool the tyres when he last came by the pits. So he's having to manage those tyres for the last 6 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what Rich's lap times are when he starts doing the flying laps again once he comes back over the line.
He'll be hoping to make it to the checkered flag. Under 6 minutes to go here at Zandvoort. It's been an absolute thriller so far, and there's still plenty of time for things to go wrong or go right, depending on your strategy call. Here's Mike Abrenhoser looking for a way past Dennis Berkman, number 444, Aston Martin, holding on to 12th place for now. Abrenhoser, though, is looking feisty in the number 21 car. The nose to tail on the exit of turn 4 and up over the crest. And it's difficult to follow a car through this section as Garlin sends one up the inside of Damien De Keyser into turn 1. It's been another race that has just unravelled for Andreas in the number 188 Mad Goetzer Racing Aston Martin. The recovery drive hasn't quite seemed completed by him this evening. He's battled so hard this season to scrap back into the points and get the job done. He's finished 4th and 9th in the previous 2 races at Kyalami and at Paul Ricard. But in every single race this season, he's qualified better than he's finished, I believe. So he's not quite going his way in the race. Here is Abrenhoser, though, still looking for a way past Dennis Berkman in the number 21 machine. As we head towards these final few laps. Now, there's still 4 drivers yet to pit. As Klaas Vesters actually now dropped behind Jitse Medema. So it appears that the number 90 car is struggling, Steve. Symptoms of that early stop potentially.
Yeah, potentially, and again, like you say, the conditions are really drying out now, so it may well be that his tyre pressures are all wrong, and he will definitely be on the wets. So the track is definitely not going to be coming to him now, as it's still showing as greasy, but on the pictures you can actually see that there is very much a dry line, and I think there's more dry track than wet track right now. It's just a case of getting a bit more rubber down, drying it out a little bit more to get the grip up, but we haven't got time to worry about that. 3.5 minutes just over left of this race. Spenkling still in 5th place as it's standing, but he's the highest man that has pitted, and pretty sure that is going to transfer into the lead of the race. And I think we've got Spenkling on the top step of the podium this evening.
Let's see how it plays out. 3.5 minutes to go. A handful of drivers who still need to make their stop. The first of which is Rhys Spence Rob Higo on screen. He's limping around in the number 48 Aston Martin, certainly giving it everything to make sure he can extract as much lap time as possible before he makes a very late stop. But he's down in the, he's up in the 141s. Sem Spenklink's now in the mid 39, so a gap of 1.5 seconds that Rhys Spence Rob is losing at the moment. As those are our top 3 positions. Spencer Marquez and Nelson Abrenhoser, they're all going through the middle and final sectors. Let's see if Spencer Rob comes to pit lane. I definitely think it's time. It'd be a brave call if he continues on one more time. He might just leave it for one last lap. No, it looks like he's come to pit lane. So yeah, the number 48's in. Marquez, is he in pit lane as well? Yes, so a number of late pit callers here. Let's see if this allows Spenkling to retake the race lead. I think Abrenhoser has potentially continued on. No, they're in the final corner, so you could see the top 4 all come to pit lane at almost the final time of asking. Yes, it looks like Nelson Abrenhoser has stopped as well. The last of which will be Clyde Bainey. Now, they would have had to take a very little amount of fuel, Steve, and just looking at the track map, it looks like Spence Rob has got back out in the race lead.
Yep, Spence Rob was stationary for 7.8 seconds, so that literally was sling me a couple of litres in and I'm off. He really has, he's nailed that pit stop, and he's got out into the front, and I'm sorry Sam, I think I cursed that one, didn't I, by predicting we had him on the top step there just a lap too soon. But great tactics from Rob Spence and Marquez.
as well, yes, but they've got to hold on. They're going to have, I believe, 1 lap after this one that they're currently on. So Spence Robb has pulled a hat out of the bag. Well, there we go, we'll run with that one.
We're so blown away.
Oh no, leads the way in the 48 and struggling though. It looks like he's visibly slower than Spenkling has been on the previous laps. But crucially, he has track position. He's the race leader. He's the one that at the moment is going to be coming to take the checker flag at the end of the next lap. He's running offline, trying to find any single drop of moisture that still remains on the Zandvoort track surface. He's got 2-3 corners ahead of Sem Spenkling, who in turn will need to make his way past Matas Marquez. He's got to close nearly 10 seconds in this final 4.3 kilometres of the race. Now there's the battle for second place on your screen. The black and purple McLaren is Marquez, and the blue and gold McLaren, that is Sem Spenkling behind. So second and third places are definitely coming together. Reece Spence Robb, anyone who's supporting the driver of the number 48, cross your fingers, toes and everything you can. He can make it round the Zandvoort circuit one final time. The timer will elapse and this will be the last lap of the race. What's been a spellbinding event here at the Dutch circuit. Matas Marquez now will have to go on the defensive. Spenkling is on a charge, another 39.1 as they head into turn 4. Marquez holds the inside line. It's a one-line corner on the exit there as well, as Sem Spenkling is trying to find a way past. And all of this, Steve, is time lost, because at the front, Spence Robb can just continue on his way. All he needs to do is not make one of those unforced errors, and he could be here to steal a win away from Sem Spenkling.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, like you said, unless he makes a mistake, he's going to get that win. But Sem is going to get second place as he gets the move done round the outside. Marquez just had no answer for that. He didn't have the grip. The car wasn't underneath him. And Spenkling wasn't easy. He had to go the hard way and the long way, but he did it, and he's definitely got that second place now. But all in all, now we're just looking at a fantastic tactical win from Rob there. Absolutely awesome decision, and just beyond my brain power to calculate that would have worked, because I did say pit as late as possible and just a splash and dash, but I had no idea that they'd come out in front of Spenkling. I thought, yeah, maybe they'll stay in the top 6, but to actually come back out in front, that was an awesome decision to have made.
Across the start-finish line, collecting the checkered flag, Reece Spence Robb wins round 4, season 4 of the GT3s here at Simsport Racing International. A spectacular drive snatches the win from Sem Spenkling in the final few minutes. Then it's the number 1 McLaren crosses the line in second place ahead of Matas Marquez, who manages to make the podium for the first time this season. Then he leads home Jitse Medema, who looked so strong at points during that race. Rich Smith manages to limp around and hold on to a top 5 finish ahead of Klaas Vester, who in his own right ran a brilliant race, but in the second half things just seemed to slow down and go the wrong way for the number 90 Ferrari. Then it's Nelson Abranhoser who makes it to P7. I believe that's his best result of this season. Yes, his previous best was a P10, came with the opening round at Laguna Seca. Then it's Clyde Bainey, Benjamin Simmers and Nard Cox rounding out your top 10, with Kieran Vidago, who led the race at the start and took pole position. Further down the order, he's outside the top 10 as they cross the line. And then in P11, Mike Abranhoser ahead of Dennis Verkman, Tim Niebauer and Joris Everlands round out your top 15. Johan Planas, Chris Vickers, Tim Krull, Dan Lenson and Andreas Garlin, your top 20. And Steve, look, we know that just one stop in a pit in a race can change everything. It changes the strategy, changes exactly how the drivers seek to play out the race and how they choose to split it. But tonight, factor in the rain, the changing conditions. Really, what a move there from Reece Spence Robb to go as long as he could, really shake things up, and at the end, he's the one leaving with a race victory to his name.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Like I said it during the race, really brave tactics and really, strong decision to make that. It's definitely, it's beyond me, beyond my calculations, and I'm just mega impressed with the guys that's what they chose to do, and that's what they did. Really strong finish from the guys. But it has to be said that, you know, Barney, a few of the guys for Dargo did well to finish 11th after all. Pretty much you could say threw away that race victory, although I don't think he threw it away. I think there was a setup issue with tyre pressures. You know, Barney did well to finish where he did, because let's not forget he was turned sideways a couple of times and had a couple of bits of contact, and you know, he still managed to maintain you know, a good solid sort of top. He was in the top 8, I believe, so you know, can't fault him, and just you know, think it's some awesome driving tonight in some difficult conditions, made even harder by the fact that the conditions changed so much.
Absolutely, and Reece Spencer certainly mastered the difficult conditions. We are just going to hear from actually the some of the best finishers tonight. They've dropped into the green room, so we'll drag them in through the door. I'm sure they are just taking a second to catch their breath post-race, and we'll have a word with them, and a really exciting race all round. Now, Reece Spence, Rob, race victor tonight at Zandvoort Circuit. Coming into those final 5 minutes, did you think you were going to snatch the victory?
To be honest, no. That came out of nowhere. I thought Sam was definitely going to have me, and the worrying thing was I didn't know whether he'd gone in for tyres or whether he'd just fueled it up. So it was just pot luck, but I'm absolutely over the moon. That is just absolutely awesome.
It was a difficult race nonetheless. The Zandvoort circuit is certainly very tricky. What was going through your mind at the middle point of the race when we saw the rain begin to ease and it looked like the track was starting to dry up quite considerably?
Yeah, we had the team on the radio. A couple of us were all sort of debating whether it was going to be quicker to go to dry tyres. But I had a race a couple of weeks ago in Bathurst, which was the exact same situation, and I held off on that one on wet tyres on a dry track. And I think it was just I had to commit. If I was going to get anything from this race, I just had to try and play that strategy card and just do whatever anyone else wasn't doing.
It certainly looks to have played in your favour. How was it, though, managing the wet tyres that were on your Aston Martin towards that, I mean, pretty much the entirety of the race as things started drying up? Was it particularly difficult out there? We saw you at times 2 seconds slower than Sem.
Yeah, it was really tricky to manage, and especially because I'd spent the first portion of the race fighting. I think the tyres had really gone, but it was just a case of just try and keep it on the track, just trying every single straight run outside of the racing line, is just try and cool the tyres off as much as you can. I think you can probably see it on the stream that I was doing down the straights. I was just out of line every single lap, just trying to pick up as much standing water as I could just to try and cool those tyres off. But it's exciting to do. It's good. It's different from the norm, so it's always nice to do.
But I can sense there's a little bit of shock in your voice that this race win has actually come about. But on top of that, there must be a really good feeling about winning one of these races, because it's such a close field. You finished second at Kyle Lamy, P4 last time out at Paul Ricard. You've been close to the victory this season, and tonight you got the job done.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I've been ill with COVID over the past couple of weeks, so it was a case of whether I even felt well enough to race this, and I'm so glad I did, because at one point I was struggling over the last sort of week practicing. I was not really feeling too well. Luckily this morning I woke up and I felt okay, so I decided to give it a go, and yeah, boy, am I glad I did. And I've been so close. I feel like I've had the pace to keep up with these guys, and it's really nice to just finally see that pay off. And more than anything, I think it's hopefully going to be a bit more of a confidence boost as well.
Brilliant stuff, Reece. Well, congratulations on the race win, and there's no medication quite like standing on the top step of the virtual podium, so congratulations on a spectacular job this evening.
Awesome. Thanks to you guys as well for putting this on. It's every time it's really good, but yeah, cheers.
Thanks, Reece. And we'll go to Sem Spankelink. P2 tonight, Sem. It looked like you would have been able to take that race victory, but Reece just went that little bit longer on the strategy, and it looked to have paid dividends.
Yeah, kudos to Reece, of course. Like, he did an amazing job, but I must say this was like one of my best races. I think like quali wasn't too great. I actually had a good feeling in the wet, but my pressures were all over the place at the start of quali. So yeah, boxed a bit late and seemed to be wetter and wetter on track during quali. Eventually I had a good run, but got blocked by an Aston Martin in the second to last corner, so couldn't complete my run. That was a shame. So it started a bit further back, P8 I believe, but after that really good recovery. Actually after turn 1 already back into P4 and had some great battles with Clyde Barney, and after that also a little bit with Vidago. So it was a really nice and eventful race. Eventually went for the pit stop and yeah, I was calculating how much fuel I should add to just have a short pit stop, but I decided to also take tires unwillingly, which set me back a little bit. Pace was okay on the dry tires, but of course, yeah, I couldn't make up the difference anymore. In the end, really glad with the result though, and happy that I could still catch Mattes on the last lap.
It looked like you had two halves of the race, but were two very different races, if you like, for you, because that opening half an hour you were battling very hard with Clyde Bainey and Jitse Medema. It must have been very difficult in the conditions to not only make a pass but also defend from the drivers behind.
Yeah, definitely. It was really difficult to pass Clyde. I felt like I had a lot of overspeed on him, but there was just no gaps that I could take where it would feel comfortable to put the car next to him. Into T1 was the only option, but I had to dive from pretty deep. We touched once slightly, I let him back past, and then he suddenly dropped back. I don't know what happened there, so yeah, hope no technical issues or something, but that was a shame to see. I thought we had a great battle with some crazy side-to-side racing as well through some corners. Like I think we were side by side like 4 corners in a row, so that was really epic, but also really difficult. Of course, Zandvoort is a track that's difficult to overtake on. But in the wet, I expected it to be a little bit easier, but yeah, not really.
Well, look, you've got the number 1 on your McLaren. You are a champion in this series. Is this one of those races that you look back at once the championship is finished and say, look, that's getting to the checkered flag there at Zandvoort? That was a race that I did a good job. Okay, it was P2. It's going to be one that maybe you look back at and smile. And potentially you're a crowned champion this year.
Yeah, so there's still a long way to go. It's gonna be a rough battle. There's a lot of strong contenders on this grid, and Reese being one of them. So I hope we can take the championship to the flag, like to the finish, to the final race, and then I hope to be up there.
Brilliant stuff. Well, congratulations on a P2 tonight, Seb. We look forward to seeing you out next time.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
We'll go over to Mattis, who took P3 on the podium. Mr. Marquette, it was a thrilling race for everyone on the track. What were your thoughts, though, in those final few minutes? You hit pit lane very late indeed. Looked like you might have been able to take P2, but Sam just had the pace.
Yeah, that's right. Sam was on the dry tires, I think, so he was a little bit quicker. And I was really struggling at the end because my left rear was 125 degrees, so it was very crazy. I didn't have the grip on the left side, but anyway, I'm very happy with the P3 because this is my first podium in the SRHI, and my teammate Rhys is on the P1, so it's a very good result for us, I think.
Gonna say it's an Odyssey Racing 1-3. Must be very pleased with that as a squad. But let's talk about that, Mattis. For you, often you're battling hard, for the top 10 spots. Occasionally you find yourself fighting through the order, dropping down the order with battling. It must feel good tonight to finally get on the virtual podium.
Yeah, it's really good. My quali was P6, I think, and it was, let's say, a little bit calm race for me. The opponents in front of me made some mistakes, but then I also made one mistake, so I give it the position back to them. But anyway, through the whole race I had, let's say, a good pace. I'm really happy with my pace. But then the end comes, and I was like, what to do now? We were discussing a lot if we should stay on the wet or use dries. But then I decided to stay on the wets, and it was a good decision.
Well, thank you very much for joining us post-race, Mattis. Congratulations on your first appearance on the podium.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys, for joining us in the commentary booth. Steve, great to hear from the top three there about how their races panned out, and I did enjoy the slight sense of shock in Rhys Spence-Rob's voice that all came together and he found himself leaving Zandvoort race winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we said, it was a shock to us all, really. I don't think none of us predicted that, did we? We didn't really think that was on the cards. We literally, we had all our eggs in one basket, and Sem was going to win that race. That's what we were predicting, or certainly that's what I was predicting. And I didn't hear any arguments, so it was a case of it took us all by surprise. But yeah, it just goes to show it's not over till it's over, and he won that race in the last 3 minutes there, didn't he? With a fantastic pit stop. He had minimal driving time down the pit lane, and he was stopped for a very short period of time, around about 7 seconds I think it was, if memory serves me correctly. So yeah, great job. But hats off to everybody on the grid tonight, because that was some very difficult racing, some tough conditions for qualifying, tough conditions for the race. But when, as I said earlier, when those conditions change from one extreme to the other like they did in a 60-minute race, you normally see that in an endurance race, but to see that in a 60-minute race, the guys dealt with it very well. We did see some shuffling of the order, drivers moving up and down the order, but generally everybody dealt with it, and we had a great race yet again from these guys.
Well, congratulations to everyone making it through to the checkered flag, whether you were out there driving on track or indeed you managed to survive what I can only say was an adrenaline-filled 60 minutes and you were watching on the YouTube chat. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe to the Simsport Racing International YouTube channel for plenty more racing like this. Thank you as well to Steve Proudly for not only manning the mic but manning the cameras as well. I've been Tim Fulbrook and look forward to seeing you at the next GT3 race where, as always, the unexpected is often what we expect. Thank you very much for joining us. Until then, goodbye.